Getting that City of Fall River thing in the background.
Hey guys, this is Mike from Fall River Reporter. We're here with City Councilor Steve Camara. I'm going to do an interview with him before the City Council meeting tonight, discuss the situation with Mayor Jasiel Correia and the motion that's going to be up tonight. So, welcome Steve. So, last week was kind of fireworks, a lot of media attention around here. We had some protesters out front, we covered all that. After over an hour, you had a motion to dismiss. So we're dealing with Mayor Jasiel Correia, who is actually under federal indictment. City Council has a motion to potentially replace him with the City Council President. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, it was a motion, though, of objection. It was not actually even a motion. There is a provision in the newly established charter that if any single councilor objects to an action being taken, only when the item is before us for the first time. So, for instance, tonight, these items are before us for the second time. So there can be no objection rendered for the items tonight. But when something is brought to us for the first time, the charter in its wisdom basically is saying, let's give us all a chance to absorb what the ramifications are of this action. And if one councilor objects, it's automatically postponed to the next regular meeting or special meeting of the council. If two councilors object, then it's automatically postponed to the next regular meeting, so there's no special meeting option. And if three councilors object, in the case of an emergency, which was not deemed to be an emergency, there would need to be three councilors objecting in order for there to be any objection that would result in a postponement. So my one objection was then joined by a second councilor for two of the items, and then one of the items I objected alone. And my purpose in doing that was just to give us a chance to breathe and a chance to consider the ramifications of such an action. I'm a student of government. I've had a long tenure in serving government, and I just think that sometimes when you take an action that's without due deliberation and due consideration, that sometimes it's not the best action.
Do you think you're just moving too fast?
Yeah, it's moving too fast, and it's a big issue. I mean, the removal of a mayor from a position of being mayor, or an attempt to remove a mayor from, which is what this is, because there is clearly going to be some action that's going to be a result of this action, should this action prevail, particularly the motion on the removal of the mayor or the temporary removal of the mayor. That will trigger automatically legal action, and that legal action will be costly.
So if, based on the charter, if Mayor Correia is actually voted, it takes 7 votes, I believe, right?
Well, the provision in the charter refers to if the mayor is unable to perform his duties due to physical or mental health issues, and then it does say or other reason. Now our Corporation Council has already weighed in, saying that for other reason might be detained in another country without access to internet or without access to telephones to be able to stay connected to the city and its operation. The councilors that are promoting this are indicating that they believe other action might be that he's going to be so busy now with his legal defense that he's not going to be able to devote full time to the service of being mayor. I don't think that issue holds up because first of all, if it did prevail, the council president would be acting in the capacity of acting mayor, and the council president would have limited abilities, and he's a full-time employee of an industry in the real estate business. Again, I think that we should let the legal process prevail. I've always said there are 3 ways that a mayor can be removed. He can resign, or she can resign. Secondly, they can be recalled. Or thirdly, they can be convicted of a crime. Those are the 3 unquestionable, undeniable, undebatable means of a mayor being removed from office. Right now, the mayor indicates he's not resigning. That could change tomorrow if he changed his mind. He can be recalled, and the recall process has begun. There are people that have issued the necessary signatures to get the petitions to pursue the recall process. And then thirdly, he can be convicted, and there is a trial date in December. I don't know how long that trial will take, but that's the third way that a mayor can be removed from office. Then there would be no question about what happens. The mayor leaves office, the council president temporarily would be in office, although there's a provision that if the mayor leaves office within 18 months of the beginning of his term, so now we're talking about June 30th, 2019, if he leaves office by June 30th of 2019, then there's a special election. So the council president does not serve as acting mayor until the end of the term, unless he was elected in that special election. So, I don't know,
So, yeah,
a little bit complicated.
No, it's
but I hope
okay.
you follow it.
That's great. But so you would prefer more of a recall action?
I prefer that one of those three options occur. That either he resigns, that the recall process takes place, or that the court does a swift, and that's really, I guess, of the three, I hope the court is quick, because the court and the accusations by the federal agencies has put the city in a bit of a quandary. So I hope that they'll act quickly on the judicial process. I don't like recall as a process, so I'm not going to sign the recall petition. I don't want to see a recall election. It hasn't served us well. It didn't serve us well the last time we used it, when Mayor Flanagan was recalled, and we ended up with Mayor Sutter, and then we ended up with Mayor Sutter getting defeated by Mayor Correia. It was a tumultuous situation through that recall process. I don't see recall as being certainly a valid option, but I don't see it as a healthy option, particularly when we're just 1 year away from the regular city election.
So I was reading the motion for tonight. The wording basically says, doesn't force Mayor Correia to resign. Actually says that he should be replaced by the city council president. You think that's going to get taken up tonight, or is there going to be an absence or something like that that could kind of push it another week?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen tonight. The council president could call a special meeting. One of the councilors is absent. I think that one councilor who is absent is being looked at as the undecided councilor. I think that likely there are two councilors who are firmly not wanting to see this vote prevail. I think there are 6 councilors that want to see the vote prevail. This is just my read, not guaranteed.
Yeah.
But there's one councilor who is weighing the option. He's also the junior member of the council. This is his first term of office. He's probably a bit unsure of himself in terms of where he should go on this. In his argument at the last council meeting, he was seeing both sides of the issue clearly. So I think he needed some time to think about it. And fortunately or unfortunately, he scheduled his vacation for this week, so he's not going to be at the council chamber. So I think that at least the vote on the removal of office or temporary replacement will not happen tonight. Possibly the other two will, because the other two only require a majority vote. But that will be whether or not anyone moves it forward from where it is now, which is tabled.
Yeah, and to be fair, this wasn't scheduled on here until last Tuesday, right? So it's not like you hear some people say he's out of town because of this, but he was already, this was scheduled.
He's not skipping out because he wants to avoid this vote. He clearly had made plans to be on vacation or wherever he is. I think he's on vacation.
So there was a lot of, during the public time, there was normal residents, but there was also some legal folks. And the legal counsel for the city council, he believes that there is not power inside the charter to actually, for a city council to remove a mayor or forever, correct?
No, our city corporation councilor, Joe Macy?
Yep.
No, he doesn't believe the council can take this action. He doesn't believe, and I've done a little more research on it also, that as long as there's a mayor, there is one salary line item that's called mayor. So the current mayor, if he doesn't resign, or if he's not recalled, or if he's not convicted, he'll continue to collect his salary. So the idea of replacing him with the council president will only mean that the council president is serving in an acting capacity, but we've already been informed that likely that will end up in litigation because the mayor is not going away freely. He's ready to fight this, and if he fights it, he's entitled to legal representation paid by the city because he's still the mayor. So we would end up with law bills to pay for the mayor's lawyers, and he's already got a high-powered, I think, Boston law firm representing him. We would pay the corporation counselor, who has already said that he's going to likely hire outside co-counsel because he wants to show his objectivity. And very likely there would be an appointed lawyer for the city council. That triggered me last week, after the council meeting last week, to send a communication, or actually a verbal communication to the corporation council, who's been around for a long time, to give me an estimate as to what would it cost for this kind of action, should the council's vote prevail 7-2, presumably, if that is the eventuality.
Can you talk about that cost that you found out?
Yes. I just received it today, so this is hot news. You are actually the first media outlet that's getting this news. And the corporation counselor is estimating, and I'll be happy to give you a copy of this so you can look at it more extensively. But I'm reading now from the fourth to the last paragraph, which is the summary paragraph. He says, therefore, an estimate of the potential legal cost to the city from start to finish would be between $330,000 to $420,000.
And this is the combined cost you're talking about, like those?
Yeah, combined costs, paying the mayor's lawyers, paying the city's lawyers, and paying the city council lawyers, all of whom would be entitled to legal representation. That we're looking at a cost of somewhere between $330,000 to $420,000. So let's just take a figure of $375,000. That's a lot of money by any estimate in terms of Fall River's capacity. Where does that money come from? There is no line item of $375,000 to pay for this. So it would mean we'd have to take a look at police, fire, possibly education, possibly general government services. We would have to find that money from some other source.
There's no like rainy day fund or anything like that?
There is some capacity to tap into that, but usually that's for literally rainy day activity for emergencies. They would be able to tap into that. I don't believe, I would have to check because we just committed $300,000 at the last council meeting to a Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So that $300,000 depleted that basically, as you're calling it, a rainy day fund, which I think has a more technical name. But yeah, I don't think we have this full amount there. So there would definitely, services would be compromised as a result of this $375,000 more or less bill that the corporation councilor is estimating.
Do you remember what it cost when Flanagan was recalled, what that cost was?
About a $60,000 price tag, and that price tag would prevail if this recall process goes through. So generally a recall election is somewhere between 60, maybe the cost has gone up a little bit. We've got some new machines, voting machines that may be available, although we may still have the old, depending on how quick the recall process happens. But estimate 60,000, maybe to 70,000.
So $60,000 for a recall, maybe a little more, but you're talking $300,000 to $400,000 to actually remove a mayor.
Yeah.
That could take a year, or who knows how long, right?
Right.
And the court case might come faster.
Right. So this, in fact, that's an interesting question that you're asking, because if in fact the council vote prevailed, then we could conceivably be committing ourselves to a $375,000 cost. At the same time, there would be a judicial proceeding that might also have some cost that I'm not even thinking about, and I don't have an answer to whether or not there would be city cost relating to that. But then the judicial process on the Fed's accusations or indictment could end up negating all of this other cost. So we may end up paying a good portion of this almost $400,000 that would then be down the drain, because then the judicial proceedings, say if they came to a point of indicating that the mayor was guilty of any of these charges, then the mayor would have to leave office, in which case then we'd be back into the prospect of maybe a special election if it's within the 18-month period, or an acting mayor serving if it's after the 18-month period.
Sounds like the lawyers will win on this, but no one else, right?
Lawyers are going to do quite well in this process, and I have nothing against lawyers, and we all may need one at some point, and certainly when we do, we want them to do a good job, and we want them to be paid appropriately. But I'm not interested at this point, at this time, committing over $375,000 more or less to what I think is unnecessary. There are three ways for the mayor to go. He can resign, he can be recalled, or he can be convicted. Those three are indisputable. Those three don't go to court. Those three are clean and clear ways for us to go to the next step.
So passions were pretty high last week on Tuesday. It was a pretty full house in the city council area. We had one person removed. What have you heard from your constituents? Is obviously you kind of took an unpopular position as the short-term energy out there was for him to step down and resign. You took it unpopular, and you're saying because you want to have more time. What has your constituents told you?
Well, I like to think of myself as a principled elected official. I've taken unpopular positions all my life. Even before being in a public office, I've stood my ground. I've taken positions that have gone against the grain, and I'm proud of the service that I've rendered to my community, and I will continue to render principled, honest service to my community. I've received very positive responses. I've also received some very negative responses. Some of my closest allies who have had, on other issues, been very upset with this mayor, have basically said they'd never vote for me again, even though they've been strong allies throughout most of my political career. So I've lost some friends through this vote. I've gained some others who have never been supportive, who think that I'm doing the right thing by saying, let's be deliberative, let's look at this in a sensible, logical way, and let's consider the options. That, I think, is the right way to go. I've had more people say, this is the logical way to go. And so I feel good, I feel comfortable about the position I've taken, and I'll continue to be resistant to any action that's going to put us in a financial difficult situation. And I think $300 to $400 or more thousands of dollars to pursue a path that would be the result of any kind of vote to temporarily remove this current mayor from office.
So we did a poll on Fall Reporter. We had 2,200 people respond in a week, all unique. It's a Facebook poll, but it's all on Fall Reporter, and 76% said they preferred him to step down. Would you prefer he step down, or would you prefer him to stay on and do the recall? Or do you have a preference?
You know, I would think at least some of those that prefer that he step down would agree with one of the three logical ways of stepping down, resigning. I don't support that at this point because I believe in the basic tenet in American government that one is innocent until proven guilty. So I am interested in this mayor or any person having his day or her day in court to prove basically his innocence, and he declares himself currently to be innocent. So as it relates to the other two, I have no objection to the recall process going forward. If the voters then choose to recall, then that would be something I would find acceptable because that is our method of governing. And I certainly would have no objection if he's proven to be guilty to then being removed from office, because that too is the legal process. I just want the legal process, and I want the constitutional process to prevail. Right now, the idea of removing someone even temporarily from office presumes guilt. There's no question in my mind that Fall River continues to be governed by this mayor and his staff and all those good employees that we have, from the city administrator down to the cafeteria worker. Everyone, and I don't want to minimize the cafeteria workers because we all love cafeteria workers serving us lunch or breakfast and dinner, whatever. So, everyone's important in government that does the work that they do, and everybody is doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. Governing is occurring from the mayor right through the rest of our public employees. I don't believe that he's incapacitated He's got more on his plate now than he did 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago. He has more to deal with now, but we all rise to the occasion. It's often been said, if you want something done right, give it to a busy person. Well, this mayor is very busy now, so hopefully he'll be doing things right.
Yeah, the complexity I heard during the city council was if, the detractors will say that he wouldn't have the time to be a mayor, and then if he was forced out, he'd still be mayor, but then city council president would also be a mayor, and they'd both be doing two different jobs. So it seems complex way to go. Do you think that it's good for the city, though, over the next 12 months or so to have this kind of hanging over the city? And that's what I would say the people that are, wanting Jasiel step down is saying, is that people won't want to do business here. People won't, he won't have the time to do it. And you kind of just summarized that, but would you reinforce you have a belief that he can do it?
I do have a belief that he can do it. I believe, too, that there are lots of elements that promote the city. There's certainly people within the Bristol County Chamber of Commerce located here in Fall River that are promoting the city. We who are city councilors are promoting the city. The mayor continues to promote the city. I'm sure our city administrator and our redevelopment authority. I was pleased to see that there's some significant movement on the city pier project and the Route 79 redevelopment project, both of which are going to produce additional developable land. I can tell you I'm busier than I've ever been in my, now approaching my 20th year of serving as a city councilor. I go to more ribbon cuttings and more openings of businesses throughout the city. So people are seeing that Fall River is a good place to do business. I'm not trying to paint a rosier picture than what exists. But Fall River is a great community. It's a resilient community. It's going to survive this bump in the road. And I think it's going to give us an opportunity to consider other options. I think it's premature for me to consider other options, but I've long been a proponent of a city manager form of government. Worcester has a city manager form of government, and they were very successful in negotiating the relocation of the Pawtucket Red Sox to Worcester. Cambridge is a city manager form of government, and no one would probably be able to take anything more than a back seat to Cambridge in terms of how much development is happening in the city of Cambridge. When you have a city manager form of government, you've hired somebody who's a professional to operate the day-to-day activities of the city. It's not based upon the popularity of a single person as mayor. I think that that's one of the things that I hope is going to come out of this experience, is that we're going to take a look at, is this form of government with a single mayor and 9 members of a council, all elected at large, none of whom, by the way, as I recall last time I checked, received a majority vote from the Fall River populace. You get elected as a city councilor because of a plurality vote.
Top 9, right?
Yeah, the top 9. So most of us get 30%, 40%. I think the last time I checked, there was one councilor who received a bit more, like was 10 votes more than 50%. So there's something called ranked choice voting. We're not going to have time to talk about ranked choice voting today.
Another time.
But ranked choice voting is a means of electing your officials so that everyone gets more than 50% of the vote. And I would like to see us look at a form of government where you have geographic representation, because right now most of the councils occupy. Well, I want to have I'm a political scientist by education, and I have a master's in urban policy analysis. So I'm a zonk. I'm a political zonk. I like to look at policies and how do you get a more effective and responsive form of government. I would like to see councilors coming from 5 different sectors of the city. I think we very easily, because we think of ourselves as from the north end, the south end, the east end, or the west end. We never really called it the waterfront area the west end, but that's what the waterfront area is basically a west end. And we have a central city. Pleasant Bedford Street sort of determined as the center of the city. I would like to see 5 councilors, each coming from those 5 districts, but elected by the whole city. So the whole city elects the councilor from the north, south, east, west.
It's not a ward vote, it's just a geographic vote.
But you come geographically from that district. Therefore, every citizen would say, oh yeah, Joe Schmo, he lives in my neighborhood. I know he's one of the councilors. But I can also go to the other councilor too, because I voted for that other councilor also. So you'd have 5 as the way my dream form of government would be.
5 plus the at-large?
5, and I would have a mayor and a vice mayor, or a mayor and a deputy mayor, elected citywide and run as a ticket, the way we elect our governor and lieutenant governor. And they get elected at large. So if Steve Camara and Joe Camara decide they want to be a ticket, and then Cliff Ponte and Pamela Liberty LeBeau want to be a ticket, then the voters would vote for their preferred ticket that would serve as mayor and deputy mayor. The mayor and deputy mayor would serve as a member of the council. Both would serve as members of the council. They would also serve as members of the school committee, because the school committee would be elected the same way. So you'd end up with 7 members of the school committee, 7 members of the city council. They would serve as the board of directors. Similar to what happens now, the school committee elects and appoints a superintendent of schools. The 7-member council would appoint a city administrator, a city manager, and that manager would then operate. One of the other things it would do, one of the most divisive things, and I can tell you this from, again, as many years as I've had, a number of votes for both. In fact, neither of them got the necessary votes on the first ballot. So it was 4-4, and eventually Cliff Ponte got 5 votes. Well, there was an automatic division there, an automatic separation. So if you elected a mayor and a deputy mayor by the people, there would be no more division, because the people have chosen who, and hopefully the people would choose who is best able to be a fair moderator of a council or of a school committee. And then you hire a professional manager. You don't like what that manager's doing, you don't have the dilemma you have now. Remove him. 7 people on the council, 7 people on the school committee can remove the superintendent of schools. They can actually a majority, so 4 members of either body could remove a school superintendent or could remove a city manager. And you hire professional managers. I have a very good friend who's a big developer in New England, and he's told me the cities that he most enjoys working with to develop, put business, put people to work, are Worcester and Cambridge. And I said, well, why Worcester and Cambridge? He said, they have professional city managers. It's so much easier to work with a professional city manager. One of the things that happens when you're working with a professional city manager, he's not asking you to buy tickets to his cocktail party. He's not asking you to contribute to his re-election campaign. He's looking, a city manager is looking to carry out, hopefully, because every city manager is supposed to have a professional code of ethics. He's or she is there to carry out the responsibilities that are directed by the board of directors, which in this case would be the city council. So it still keeps the people in control of their government through an elected process, but the professionalism of the leader is the city manager. So in my lifetime, I've seen druggists, undertakers, bus drivers, civil servants, lawyers. I've seen all these types of people serve as our mayor. We've never hired a professional city manager as our mayor, and I think that is a detriment to the operation of good government.
So it would probably start as a motion, but it would probably take more than just an approval of a motion to do something.
It would
like
take
that.
a charter change.
Yeah, charter change. So,
Yeah.
so you're gonna put up a motion eventually, soon? Or?
I'm looking at it soon. I think I've got to take a deep breath, let this
Probably not the right timing right now.
tumult, and bring it. I did bring it forward when the Charter Commission was in existence. I presented this to the Charter Commission. They opted to stick with what we've got, which is basically the same thing that we had. 9 members elected at large, strong mayor. They would say that they intended to strengthen the council, but I think we can still see that we've basically got the same kind of government that we had before this charter change. So I'd like to see a more significant change in the charter.
Okay, so I'll ask one last question, because I know you get ready for the city council meeting. I think it starts at 6, right? Purple trash bags. Okay, so it seems like, if I can get this right, the mayor wants to get rid of those, the city council is kind of leaving it. Is that right? A fair assessment?
A majority of the city council. I'm all for elimination of the purple bags. I think it's a bad system. It unfortunately affects those that can least afford it. I happen to be someone who's very invested in downtown, so I have tenants who struggle to pay their monthly bills. They don't put purple bags at the top of their agenda when they're buying food or medicine or paying the rent or paying their electric bill or paying their gas bill. So it often ends up being that they don't buy the purple bags. As much as I try to persuade them to buy the purple bags, it doesn't work. If they don't want to buy them, they're not going to buy them. So I've ended up having to have a private hauler take away the trash. And maybe that's where we ought to be going. We ought to be going, get the city out of the trash business. Let private haulers take care of trash. I'm for eliminating the purple bags. I was for, and I got elected on the basis of eliminating the per unit fee that former Mayor Sutter implemented. I've always been an opponent of the purple bag. I was initially willing to give it a shot because I like some things about the purple bags. I like the fact that it encourages recycling. I think that is a valid point. And maybe there is a way for us to do it better, but this system doesn't work. The bags are flimsy. They don't do what they're supposed to do. People can't afford them. There probably should be some means to take into account that there are people that can't afford these bags. How do you deal with that question? But overall, I'm with the mayor on the issue of eliminating the purple bags.
Okay, so this was Steve Camara, your city council member. Sounds like we have to do another interview, talk about this.
Mike, I enjoyed this. I like real news, and this is real news because you're not mincing what I'm saying. I'm saying what I'm saying to the people, to the folks who are listening to me. I like that. I've had a lot of trouble with the mainstream media because I find sometimes your perspective, an individual perspective, gets misinterpreted. This has been a pleasure. I'll come back again if you want me, Mike.
All right, thanks for the interview.
Okay.